Welcome. I'm Nina Griffin, and this is the Astrology and Magic channel. Today we'll talk about stationary periods of the planets. This is very timely, as in October 2021, we will have 4 planets stationing direct, which is really unusual and very instructive. First off, I wanted to say thank you very much to all of my patrons. If you would like to join my Patreon and get access to videos that are not available to the general public, or just get access to videos that are later released to the public, or at the higher tiers if you want access to my magical elections document that comes out every month, please join patreon.com/Nina Griffin. Now, let's talk about this idea of stationing planets. First off, planets station twice. Planet stations before or just as they go retrograde, and then they station again when they go direct. And stationing is nothing more than apparently, that is to the eye, they appear to come to a stop before changing direction. And this is something that can be a little bit hard to imagine because many of us have learned astrology by using software instead of by observing the actual planetary bodies in the sky. But the thing to remember is that planets actually station for different periods of time at different times. Now, this may sound very confusing, and you may wonder why you need to know this. The main reason to understand this is that whenever you are making any kind of plans and you want to understand how long a planet will actually be stationary, that is to say, when its energy is going to be very fixed rather than moving forward or backward, which could be desirable or not, depending on your goals, you need to know how long that planet will station. Now, if you're a software user, as I think most of us are, you're going to find that most software tends to mark planets as stationary for 24 hours, usually about 12 hours before and then 12 hours after their station. Now, this is a little bit misleading because when it comes to looking at planet stations, we don't just look at them stationing numerically in the ephemeris, when they literally move 0 degrees and 0 minutes, but we also look at them stationing visually, right, in the sky. And I think that there are some very good pieces of information about this in traditional texts because, of course, yes, they had an ephemeris to refer to, but people were much more reliant on what was going on in the sky, perhaps as a way of checking the ephemeris, checking their work, and of course, they weren't dealing with the crazy amounts of light pollution that we have today in our cities. So the first thing that we want to understand is that planets are essentially stationing before they change direction. We'll talk about the different stationary periods of each planet, and then understand that at the end of this period, that's when it changes direction. So one example is Saturn. Saturn is actually stationary for 5 days before he turns retrograde, and 5 days before he turns direct. So you can see that the change of direction is generally seen as kind of the end of the stationary period, right? So there's like a slow or no movement rather for a period of days, and then there is a change. Now, this is good to remember because also if you're looking at things like world events, you'll notice that there will be events that correspond to a planet's station, that correspond to that planet's symbolism as though that planet were stationing. And you might notice that it might happen for a few days before that planet changes direction. So this is actually fairly easily verifiable just based on objective examination of what's going on in the world, what's going on in our lives. So let's continue. So Saturn is stationary 5 days before going retrograde and 5 days before going direct. Jupiter, since he's a slightly faster planet, he is stationary 5 days before going retrograde, just like Saturn, but only 4 days before turning direct. Mars is stationary 2 to 3 days before going retrograde, and then 2 days before going direct. Venus stations 2 days before retrograde and 2 days before going direct. And Mercury is 1 day before retrograde and 1 day before going direct. So I'm going to put these up for you just so you can copy them down for future reference. But recognize that it may not be that your software is showing a station, even though the planet is actually already stationary. So whatever chart you're working with, whether it's a natal chart or a horary chart or some kind of transit chart, always click it forward and backward a few days just to see, is the planet close to a station? Is it about to change direction? Because like I said, software tends to only show that change of direction pretty much right as it's happening, And if you're just a few days before then, unless you know what planets look like in their synodic cycles with the sun, that is the points that they usually change direction, you won't necessarily know that you have a stationary planet on your hands. Now, going back to October 2021, we're going to have a planet stationing literally once a week, the whole month, which is crazy and pretty much very rare, right? So Pluto stations the first week of October. Now, we don't have this kind of information about Pluto because Pluto can't be seen with the naked eye. Now, because he's very slow, you could probably assume that yes, Pluto's station is even longer than that of Saturn, so it's somewhere longer than 5 days. I have no idea what the right number is, but if you wanted to make it a week or even 10 days, I think that's certainly plausible. Then the following week, we're going to have Saturn stationing direct, so that is going to be a 5-day period before the change of direction that Saturn essentially is stationary. The following week, the third week of October, we're going to have Jupiter stationing direct, so he's stationary 4 days and then he changes direction to go direct. And then the last week, we'll have Mercury stationing direct, and that's just 1 day before actually changing direction. So I would expect a lot of matter suddenly start moving forward with greater ease and greater speed every week, just as October goes on. And it's kind of fascinating that it's happening from the slowest planet, Pluto, to the fastest planet, Mercury, sort of in order. So we could really see matters pick up a lot of speed just through this, very quick period of 1 month. All right, I hope you enjoyed this quick video. My name is Nina Griffin, and this is the Astrology and Magic channel.